in. The Gemara says if you raise it with, let's say you put cushions down, pillows down, blankets down, that's not a proper. We're on now Dalet Aleph for A. I'm just mentioning outside what we said yesterday. The Gemara says that if you go ahead and you put pillows on the ground of the sukkah, now as a result of the pillows, from the pillows to the ceiling, you have it's not more than 20 amot. That's not called a proper miyut, lowering of the sukkah, because it's not going to remain there, because you're gonna the fact that this moment you're standing on the cushions of the pillows, but you plan on taking them away. Since even if you are a type of person, even if you said no, I'm in the cushion business, I don't care, I'll leave it there the whole 7 days, doesn't make a difference. But which means your mind, what you want to do, it's not subjective to the person. It has to do what's called the norm by people. Is this structure considered a structure that's considered less than 20 amot? And if you have these, if you have from the ground to the schach actual more than 20 amot, the fact that you put these pillows there and you plan on keeping these pillows there, but that's not the norm. The norm is that those pillows are not there, are going to be removed, and therefore they're not considered a proper lowering of the height of the sukkah. Then we get to a new case. Second line from the top of 4A1. Teven ubitlo. If someone had straw, and he takes straw, and he was mevatel the straw, and he says, "I'm going to leave the straw in the ground of the sukkah." So what are we trying to do? Good morning, Mark.
Is he going to stand on the straw?
Morning. Morning, Mark. He's going to stand on the straw because he has to make the sukkah less than 20 amot. So therefore, this becomes the new floor of the sukkah. Now, we know teven is a type of material that you might want to go ahead and take away for your animals. Morning, Adam. But it's not, many people. It's not such an important type of thing like a pillow or a cushion that you would mind to leave there for a certain amount for 7 days. So what do you say? Right. So Rashi says that he went ahead and he said with his mouth, "I am mimavatel. I am leaving. I'm going to leave the straw there throughout the duration of the Sukkah holiday." Other commentaries say it's not enough just to leave it there. Good morning, Adam. For the 7 days, you have to actually say, "I'm going to leave it there forever, permanently." But Rashi says you made a statement that you're going to leave it there for 7 days. Straw is very inexpensive, and it's not unusual that a person will just leave his straw, even though there might be some it might get ruined a little bit. It doesn't bother for the person so much that the straw gets ruined. It's not like a pillow or a cushion, and therefore, if he places this here on the ground of the sukkah, that's called a proper lowering of the height of the sukkah. So Rashi says that this nullification, bittul, right? We're almost getting to the bittul chametz coming up in a few days. The nullification of chametz that we say after the search and also in the morning after we burn the chametz. There's two nullifications that need to be said. So Rashi says this nullification was for 7 days. You don't have to nullify it, leave it there forever. And also Rashi says you have to make the nullification. Rashi mentions that you did it with your mouth. You specified that I'm leaving the straw there for 7 days. Meaning if you have in mind to leave it there for 7 days, from Rashi it seems that's not sufficient. The Ritva of the opinion, he argues with Rashi. He says there's no difference whether you actually nullified it with your mouth, whether you actually said, I'm leaving it there for 7, you actually said it, or if you had in mind, having it in mind would also act the same. But also he requires that it has to be a nullification forever. You have to make this part of the ground. What's called part of the ground, this could only be, his opinion is only if you make the nullification. Now I'm going to leave it there, the olam, forever. Meaning, so what does that mean? I mean, also it's hard, and maybe Rashi doesn't say, because listen, a sukkah is a type of structure you don't leave forever. No one builds a sukkah. Generally, a sukkah is a temporary sukkah. So Rashi says it's not. You don't need to say it's forever. It's. I mean, who's going to leave the straw there forever? Well, you take down the sukkah. You're going to have to leave. You're going to have to, according to this, you're going to have to leave this. According to the Ritva, it would seem you have to leave this straw there. Now this is part of the ground now. How to make this straw? How do you make the straw part of the ground if you leave it there forever? What do you want to say, Mr. Safdie?
No, Rashi.
Rashi just says Shiva. Rashi says the point is this has to be there for duration of Sukkot, because that means this sukkah, this temporary structure, is less than 20 amot. The whole structure is temporary, so that's sufficient for Rashi. Okay, so now the Gemara continues. So if you put straw down on the ground of the sukkah, and you said you're going to leave it there, we're going to go with Rashi. We'll take Rashi's opinion for 7 days, but you had to go ahead and specify it. Rashi says you openly made that declaration that it's there for 7 days, that I'm leaving it there. That's called havimiut. That's a lowering of the ground. Now you add it to the ground now, and now the ground has been now extended. Now it's higher as a result of this straw that you placed on it. And now between that and the schach, you don't have more than 20 amot, you're good. Then it says, morning, Mr. Betesh. The kol shekain afar bitlo. Certainly, if you went ahead and you put some dirt on the ground, right? You elevated the ground by you added dirt to the ground. That's the normal, natural. Now, even though it's possible, you might want to go ahead and use that dirt for some other purpose. But here, you went ahead and if you actually stated that you're going to leave this dirt here, let's say dirt has use for bricks, for other purposes, but you place this dirt here in the ground, on the ground of the sukkah, and here you said, if you said you want to leave it there, that's for sure. There's no question that would be a part of that's part of the ground. And for Rashi, maybe with Rashi's shot, it makes a lot of sense that even though you only said it's going to be there for 7 days, meaning if you said that you're going to leave this item there forever, so of course that third is that's the normal floor. So that's, of course, it's a raising of a floor. But maybe there is a partial chiddush, novel idea, that you did not say you're leaving the dirt there forever. You said you're putting dirt there in the sukkah for this 7-day period. So for sure, if you have a 7-day raising of the floor by putting straw, it's called a raising of the floor. Certainly, if you put dirt there, but it's only about a 7-day thing. Because if you say I'm putting dirt forever, you don't have to tell me that that's called a raising of the floor. That maybe it would lend it a little bit to Rashi's pshat. Now, however, Mr. Betesh, we are on 4A1. But if you put teven, if you put straw, ve'ein atid lifnoto, you don't plan on, we know that you do not need to use whatever else. We know the straw that you're putting into the sukkah, you're not going to need it for the whole 7 days. Your animals are away. they were sent away for Pesach, or you built this, whatever this, they have enough straw for your animals, wherever your animals are. And when you know, you will not need this straw for those 7 days. Now, but you did not actually state that I am leaving it in the ground. You did not, and therefore the question is, how do we look at this, the straw? If you went ahead and you said, I want the straw to be part of the ground, I am leaving it there for the duration of Sukkot, then we said that's called, now the ground has been heightened because of the straw. But you didn't say that you're leaving it there throughout the duration of Sukkot. You didn't say that, but we know you don't need it. You don't need it throughout the holiday of Sukkot. So is that enough to say that since I don't need it, it's not like standing to be removed throughout the holiday because I don't need it? Would we say that that's sufficient to be considered that the ground is now, this is like part of the ground? Or do we say the fact that you did not actually formally declare that this is part of the ground, the fact that you don't need it, but maybe, but you didn't designate it for the ground. You didn't state that you want to use it for that it's going to be there for 7 days. So therefore, that's the question. How do we look at this situation when you put the straw down, but you didn't make a declaration that it should be part of the ground? So the Gemara says this, or case 2, afar. If you put dirt down in the sukkah, right, on the ground of the sukkah, you put this dirt, but you did it stam. What does stam mean? Stam means it's not that we knew that you're not going to need it during the duration of the holiday. It's not known. It's not clear whether you are going to need it. You might need it, you might not need it. But for now, you put the dirt down on the ground of the sukkah. So now when you put the dirt down on the ground of the sukkah, and the fact that it's, if you are going to need it, you will take it from there. Do we say, but now that the dirt is there now, and now there's no space of more than 20 amot between the dirt and the ceiling and the sukkah, do we look at the dirt like the floor of the sukkah, and now it has limited the space, the airspace between the ground and the ceiling, and now it's good? Or do we say, but the fact that you might use this dirt at any time, so maybe it's considered not part of the ground of the sukkah? Yeah. Because she came afar ubitlo, bepeh. Right, correct.
Speak it out.
So if he didn't speak it out, so now the question is that might get it. That might be like this next case. You don't plan on removing it. But you didn't. There you didn't say anything, right? That's the case. What's the next case? Level 2 is you put straw there, but you didn't actually. You put straw. Straw is like the hay, like they feed animals. They have like the gold color, those things that they see in the fields that they feed the animals. So if you went ahead, morning, Mark. So that should be, if you didn't nullify it, Mr. Safdie, that should be like the second level. We're gonna have three. There's 3 levels. Level 1 is you take something and you nullify it there, and you say I'm making it that it's going to be there throughout the duration of the holiday. That's level 1. And we said even that it depends on what type of item you nullify. If you nullify an item that people don't generally nullify, that's not called a nullification. That will not make it part of the ground. if you take pillows and blankets and you say, I'm going to leave it there throughout the holiday on the ground throughout the holiday, that's not a normal thing that people will do. Therefore, that will not be an extension of the floor. If you take, people don't leave pillows out in a sukkah on the floor. Right, yeah, but meaning it's not the norm to leave this. People don't normally leave a pillow on the street, just in the street, right? Because it's going to get room. So you don't generally leave. Right, but even if I do that, but that's not the norm to say that when you have a sukkah and you put on the ground pillows to say now the sukkah, now this is called an elevated floor because of the pillows. You want to your point is here that you want to do is, of course, I mean, Mark is correct. Of course, the person has the ability to nullify a pillow. Say, I'm giving up a pillow. But that nullification, giving up the pillow, does not extend the ground. The issue here is, does the pillow now become part of the ground? And now they're part of the floor. Then now we have an elevated floor because of the pillows. That doesn't do the trick. That's what the Gemara is saying. But if you put straw down there and on the ground to fill up, to create a little height, right? Because our objective here is, we have the issue is we have the height of the sukkah is more than 20 amot. It's more than 30 or 40 feet from the ground, and we need to lower that space. So if we put the straw on the ground and we say, you know what, I'm leaving the straw here throughout the duration of the Sukkot holiday, then we look at, so Rashi understands the Gemara in that case, even though I did not say I'm leaving the straw here permanently, I'm leaving the straw here for 7 days. Now the straw becomes part of the ground. And therefore, right, exactly. And right.
Disparity between what it's 20 and more. But if you go with the opinion is higher, you said how much sometimes 20 and more, 30, right?
And we just said that 20 amot, there's a question, how high is 20 amot? The question is 20 amot, an amma could be between an amma and a foot and a half and 2 feet is an amma. So 20 times a foot and a half would be 30 feet. 20 times 2, 40 feet. So whatever.
Is it always 20 amot? That's not a question.
Right, that's the given. That's not a question. You have to.
But how much is the question?
Right.
So now, don't have to put much,
No,
exactly
20 amot. Exactly 20. 30, 1.5 foot.
Okay, so 30. So if I get 30 feet,
You're good.
Okay, 30 feet.
No good. Exactly.
And if I put it 3/4 of an inch of straw,
I'm good.
2 feet is good.
Right. Exactly. According whatever. Right. Exactly. Whatever the again. No. Again, if you hold the sukkah, no. If you hold the sukkah, it could be 20 amas is 40 feet. Then you don't have to do anything at 30, right? If a sukkah could be 20 amot high, then you have a right to have a sukkah up to 40 feet. Right. So they have to discuss different opinions what the measurement of an amma is. So therefore, because there are different opinions how to measure it, so therefore, I think on biblical issues, we generally, I would think, would be more strict and take the more strict opinion. On rabbinic issues, we would take most probably we would be more. There's more room to be more lenient.
So what do you?
Then again, then that's me. It can't be. The opinion says it can't be higher than 30 feet, according to one opinion. One opinion is 40 feet, right? If you hold at 30 feet,
40.
then exactly. That wouldn't be. That wouldn't be. Yeah, right. That wouldn't be. Right. That would right. So obviously, that wouldn't be the case. that you would, well, the Gemara is going to talk later on about putting on a platform. That, that might be a more practical, there's no 10 feet of straw. But here we're talking about just, it's just a small amount, you're off by a small amount, it's a little bit too high. So you want to use the straw, which is much easy for you. Inexpensive, easy, no big deal. So that's the case. Teven ubitlo. We said, so if you have case one, if you had straw and you said, I'm leaving the straw there throughout the holiday, that's good. And certainly if you took dirt and you say, I'm leaving the dirt there throughout the holiday, of course that's good. But case two is, I didn't make an open declaration that I'm leaving the straw there for 7 days, but I right in my mind, I don't need the straw. I don't need the straw during this time. So it doesn't say here that in my mind, that I was a vatel. It just says, I know I have straw. I know that I don't need the straw for the next 7 days. And I put the straw down on the ground of the sukkah. So now, and it could be that's similar to having a mind, maybe because I didn't openly declare it. Now the question is that called the fact that I didn't actually say I'm leaving it there for 7 days? I don't have need for it for the next 7 days. So that's the case. I don't have need for this item for the next 7 days, and I place the item on the floor of the sukkah. Is that called an extension of the floor? I didn't openly say I want it to be an extension of the floor, that I am going to leave it there for the 7 days. I don't have need for this, and I spread it out on the ground. Is that called an extension of the floor? Or do you say that since I did not actually say I want it to be part of the ground and I wanted to leave it there, I didn't say I'm openly leaving it, making it part of the ground. So the fact that I don't need it, but still maybe that's the question, does it retain it? Do we look at it as still an independent item in the ground? Even though I placed it on the ground, I spread it out on the ground, and I don't need it for 7 days, but at the end of the day, I did not say I want it to be there, that it has to remain there. I happen to be, I'm placing it there now. So that's going to be, the Gemara says, that case two is going to be a machloket between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan. That's going to be a machloket. Do we look at this item when it's there for that duration of the time that it needs to be there, but you did not actually openly state that you want to leave it there, that it should be part of that ground? So that's going to be a machloket. And the Gemara says, also, the Gemara talks about case three. Case three is if I have dirt. Dirt, which is the normal, it's a common use for dirt, is to raise the ground with dirt, even though you could use dirt for other purposes as well, like we said, filling bricks or other things. If I put dirt there without, but it's not clear whether I'm going to need it or I don't need it. So now the question is, do we say that dirt, since I might need this dirt, but how do we look at that dirt, that if I go ahead and I spread some dirt on the ground, and I might need that dirt. It's not that I said I'm going to leave this dirt here. It's not that I might not need it, that I definitely don't need the dirt. I might need the dirt. How do we interpret that? Do we look at it as an extension of the floor or not? The Gemara says these cases, we are machlokes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan. Machlokes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan. Now, where do we find Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan argue? Where is the case that they're arguing? So the Gemara says that none. We learned in a Mishnah. And this Mishnah is a Mishnah regarding a mate in Oholot. What's the case? There's a halacha. If a dead body is in a tent, or a kazayit, or the size of an olive of the size from the person is in the tent of the dead body, that will contaminate. That's metameh. That's contaminate the tent, the whole tent. Anybody who comes into the tent where the body is located, the whole room becomes contaminated. and anybody who comes into that room will become what? What's the law? They'll become tamei. So now, if there's a person who or a utensil that goes above the mate. Well, let's say goes above a mate, even if that person or utensil is 1,000 feet high, that will go ahead and mekabel tuma, right? So if there's a dead body, and let's say something goes on top of a mate, that person becomes tamei. Now, if there's a dead body outside this room, there's a dead body in the street, and someone goes above that dead body. Let's say when planes, kohanim, if you're a kohen and you have an issue if you go over a cemetery. There are issues. There are whatever the halacha that kohanim have to discuss with these issues. But let's talk about outside in the street. If someone's outside the street and the kohen goes above, let's say the kohen is standing on the roof of a building, and let's say here's the building, and then there's a mate right over here, 100 feet below, and he sticks out his head, let's say goes above that mate, or a terrace, and he puts his head out, he becomes tamei, even though he's 100 feet above the mate. That tuma, what? No limit until all the way up to the heaven. There's no limit. Okay, we have to see. We have to see how they deal with airplanes. But we have to see. Okay, so we're going to see in our Gemara. Our Gemara says that if you have a mate but if there is a separation of space between the dead body and the ceiling, if there's a ceiling, and there's a separation of, let's say, a tefach, or let's say 3.5 to 4 inches, then the ceiling is like a cap, will stop. The tumah, the contamination will stop at that ceiling and will not go higher. So therefore, what does that mean? If you have a room, if there is a room and it's filled with stuff, right? There's no space between them. Let's say there's no space between the dead body and the ceiling. So then there's no cap. That's not called a cap. Let's say there's a mate right here, and then and then the rest of the room is filled up. On top of the mate, there's stuff on top of the mate. There's items, there's pillows, there's blankets, there's anything, and that goes up to let's say they wanted to cover the coffin. And they covered the coffin and they covered it until the ceiling. So now the ceiling does not serve as a chatzitza, as a stopping of there's no space between the dead body and the ceiling. But if there's a space between the dead body and the ceiling of a tefach, then that will serve, but between anywhere between a little over 3 to 4 inches. That would go ahead and cap and stop the tumah.
There's a corpse on the street.
The corpse on the street is therefore as high up, go up to the heavens. That corpse has the ability to metame. Right. But the body's the ground, but there's no space. The body is covered up, and there's no type of thing that's separate. The tree on the street goes over things, and then that becomes a. It's the same thing. If you will go ahead, if there'll be a cable car that will run across a cemetery. So then, if you go on in that cable car, you are going to be above the cemetery, and therefore, if you're above the cemetery, the contamination of the cemetery goes straight up. The same way, like Mark said, if there's a tree that goes over a cemetery, so therefore that tree now anybody who comes under that tree, you're in. Right. Let's say the tree is, but since this tree is covering one side of the cemetery, so the other part now but in the others, but that's cool. It's like one cover, just like you have, your one room. if you have one part, you're in one room and there's one ceiling, so even if you're not on the part of someone, if there would be a dead person, that's for shalom over here, and you're standing, someone else comes in over there in the other part of the room, but you're under that same covering, that ceiling, so that therefore he will be considered contaminated. So that's the problem with a tree of a cemetery, because part of the tree is going over a body, and the other part is not going over a body, but it's one covering, and therefore anybody who come over that part of the tree would, if you're a Kohen, you would not be able to go. There are certain places in Queens and other places, but you have that the Kohanim have to be careful not to go under certain trees because they're part of the tree is covering a dead body. So that is something that people need to be aware of. So here we're saying, it's like I gave you the cable car case. I think it's a good example that if you go across that cemetery, the person will become contaminated in that cable car, even if you're 1,000 feet up high in this cable car. Yes. But then you're getting into a different issue of having something above it with that two schachs, two covering. Then we have to see about the Gemara will talk. If you remove it, no problem. If you remove the top one, but if you don't, we can't have two sections. That will be coming into questions in the Gemara that have to discuss. The Gemara will discuss having a sukkah on top. Stay tuned, as we say. A sukkah on top of a sukkah, right? Can you make a sukkah on top of a sukkah, right?
Let's say 20 feet high. Put 50 of them and drop it down. He's saying like, bring it down. You can have two full scops, but if I take half of the scop and put it down, half the scop above, and together, I can still see through it.
Right. So then you're getting
like two scops.
right. So then you're getting into the question. Then we're going to see if the question might be, I have two schachs now. The lowest schach is kosher. It's the lowest schach but the lowest schach is lower than 20 amot. But the highest schach is higher than 20 amot. But the highest schach is invalid. So now you're getting into the issue. I have kosher schach and not kosher schach mixed together. So now the question is, if you have kosher schach and not kosher schach, now if you would remove the not kosher schach, technically, if you would remove but you didn't remove it. But if you would remove it, would the lowest schach provide proper shade? Yeah, if it would provide proper shade, that might be, but that might be good. Again, we might have to see. Does it depend if there's a majority of kosher schach and a minority of not kosher schach? What's the majority? That might play a role. There might be different factors that will play a role to determine that case. That's something that we would have to see in another discussion of the Gemara. What's the law? What kosher schach and not kosher schach? So what they do by the cemeteries is the Kohanim, usually families of Kohanim, they bury on the outside, the last rows of the cemetery, so the Kohanim could go. So the Kohanim won't have a problem. They can't go into the cemetery itself, or whatever they do. So therefore, an area, unless they would stay 4 amot away. I presume they would say, they would stay. They wouldn't get up, and they do it in a way that the Kohanim should be able to. Maybe there's a fence, whatever they do, because the Kohen can't step into the cemetery. Okay, so here's the case. Ditnan, we learned in the Mishnah. Bayit. So here the case was the following. There was a bayit, there was a house. There was a dead body in the house. Shemiluhu teven osrarot. And you filled this room that there was this dead body with straw or pebbles or rocks. You filled the room that now there's no space. The straw will be a little easier type of material that you filled up the room with no space between the coffin with the dead body and the ceiling. okay? And bitlo. And not only did you fill up the space between the dead body and the ceiling, you made a declaration and you say, I am leaving the straw here. I am leaving the straw here in this house. I am not taking the straw out as long as the dead body is in the room. I am not removing the straw. That's what the man said. I know, sorry. So now that's considered a proper separate, meaning the room is now filled. We're going to look at this room. If you say, I am leaving the straw there, just like we said, if you leave the straw on the ground throughout Sukkot, that extends the ground. That means it's there. It's part of the ground. If you say you're leaving the straw in the room with the dead body for as long as the dead body there, that means it's left. That means it's there. Correct, Mark? It's there. And if it's there, therefore, if it's there, that means it fills the spaces. And therefore, therefore, we don't look at it that there's a space between the body and the ceiling. Right? And therefore, the Tumah will keep on going up. If a guy will walk on above that ceiling, if a guy will walk on that roof, it's a problem. The tefach between the dead body and the ceiling, you can walk on the roof above the dead body. So that's what the Gemara morning. So that's what the Gemara says over here. So if you went ahead and you were mevatel, mevutal. Now, the Gemara says only if you actually said, I want to nullify it. But in bitlo, low bitlo, but if I did not make a declaration that I want this straw to be there throughout the duration when the dead body is in the room, I just went ahead and I filled the room with straw. Above the mate, I put straw to the ceiling. But I did not say that I'm going to leave it there throughout the duration of the time that the dead body is there. Then we say that's not called that you filled the room. And therefore, we're gonna look at the room as if the space is there. And if the space is there, then the ceiling will cap the tumah, and it will not go. No declaration is considered, it's not part of the area. It's not part. So therefore, again, there's always a tefach. So therefore, it means as if we don't look at the straw. Again, I'm saying there's always there's a physical tefach between the body and the ceiling. There's no question. The only question is I'm trying to fill. The guy's filling that tefach with straw to the top. So now, do we say it's called a filler, and therefore it's as if there's no space, or do we look at it that it's not a filler? That it's like temporary, it's not considered, and therefore we look at it as if it's not there, and therefore there is a space. Correct, Mark, or not? So therefore, the Gemara implies that here, if you did not declare that you're leaving the straw there, you just left it. You put it there without declaring it, even though you don't need it during that time. It's not considered that it's a filler. And if it's not a filler, then it's as if it's not there. If it's not there, then there's a space between the dead body and the ceiling, and therefore it caps the tumah. To be continued, everybody. A very beautiful Gemara. So every Gemara is beautiful. That we'll wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat, and maybe next week we'll have to talk more about the airplanes and look into the airplanes. Then that's the question. Is that considered as part of it? But you don't plan on using it during the duration. Do you plan on using it? If you don't plan on using it, but you didn't declare it part of it, you put it there. Yeah. So what's the case? You put the sukkah, right? You put it there. Did you say you want to leave it in the ground? You didn't say you want to leave it there. Did you? You just what? The question is, if you didn't say it, if you didn't say you're leaving it there, You just put it down on the ground without saying you're gonna leave it there. Even that's the question. Does that become part of the ground? Or does it become part of the ground? You walk on it, but you didn't say you want it to become part of the ground. You just put it there. You didn't. Thank you very much. You didn't say that you want it to become part of the ground. You happen to.
Someone who doesn't know Baraha and puts a sukkah of 10 amot high, kosher. Do we question because he just did it like this randomly, or he didn't have the kavanah that it's less than 20 amot to be kosher, but it happened that he made it kosher. It just happened.
Very good. But you know what?
Yes.
After Sukkot, right? He might take the straw back. So the fact he's going to take the straw after Sukkot away, according to Rashi, he's not leaving it there forever. He's only leaving it for 7
You say
days.
that the guy also after Sukkot is going to increase the stuff to 30, 40, 60 amot. Like the way I see it is, it happens to be kosher, so good for him. It's as if someone who doesn't know Daracha happens to do.
Yeah, but the question is, what you need to do is you have to. Is that real? Do we look? But the straw is not really. It's not a ground material. You put the straw here. Do we look at it as if this is part of the ground? Because you need to be part of the ground in order for it to be considered that it's not so high.
But it's as if. Again, I'm comparing it to someone who doesn't know Daracha and just put up a sukkah.
I understand, but
and it happens to be kosher.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, Ariel. But here the question is, we need the straw to become part of the ground.
But it is. If it's there, it means that it is.
But the fact that straw is a material that you might take away for your animals. It's a material that's used for animal feed. It's not material that's used. So the fact that now you put it there.
Now it's there.
I understand. Okay, maybe that's one opinion. One opinion agrees with you. Then now it's there, that's good enough. But the other opinion says it's not enough. You got to actually declare, I'm making it part of the ground. Beautiful, Ariel.